Fitness Business Podcast Snapshot. Ways that fitness professionals can set their 2020 up for success. Tips on how to set a goal and stick to it, and what to do when the going gets tough and we lose motivation. All of that and more coming up in today's show. You're listening to the industry's leading fitness business podcast for owners and managers. This month's interviews are brought to you by our foundation partner, Active Management. Are you a fitness business owner, manager, or entrepreneur who wants to think and do different to your competitors? Then go to activemgmt.com.au to find out how. Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the show. Today we're talking about how to set your year up for success. And let me tell you right now, you are going to love this episode. My special guest this week is Ken Weichert, also known as Sergeant Ken. He's an award-winning international speaker, 6-time US Army Soldier of the Year, Master Fitness Trainer, Master Resilience Trainer, Counterintelligence Agent, and decorated combat veteran. Ken is a certified speaking professional, a member of the National Speakers Association, and a graduate of the John C. Maxwell Coach, Teacher, Trainer, and Speaker course. He's a multi-award winner, including Idea World 2016 Fitness Instructor of the Year and CanFitPro 2017 International Presenter of the Year, amongst his many recognitions. Ken was awarded his 10th Army Commendation Medal for creating the Warrior Fit Camp program for the Tennessee Army National Guard Suicide Prevention Task Force, helping thousands of armed service members turn stress into strength and obstacles into opportunities through physical and emotional resiliency, coaching, and leadership training. Now, I've got to tell you all that I have just shared with you only a snippet of Ken's full bio. It is absolutely incredible. So make sure that you take a moment to head over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and take a read of his bio in full and check out all of his amazing accomplishments. I cannot wait for you to hear this week's episode, so let's dive straight in. Sergeant Ken, welcome along and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. I am excited. I'm excited to be part of your podcast and to, share some of my stories and strategies with you and your listeners.
Now, we are going to kick things off with some ways that our fitness professionals out there can set their 2020 up for success. Can you share some tips with us?
I'd be happy to. And when we're talking about tips about how to grow both personally and professionally, especially for, coming into the 2020 year, we've got to first kind of take a step back and say, do you know who and why you are on this planet? I mean, really, we're in the service industry. For the most of your listeners are in the service industry, and we have to take a big step back and look at that 40,000 foot view and say, it's like if we don't, because most people go through our lives. They go through our lives and we don't really know why we're here. I mean, Pablo Picasso was made famous for this statement. He says, the meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give it away. And, how that works for the fitness industry is that we're constantly serving others. But some people in the fitness industry, if you ask them, why do you do what you do? They might say, well, to make people fit. And they talk about the what, not the why. Mm-hmm. See, if you know your why, the way to get there will be easy. And that's a fact. And so a lot of times we've got to kind of search into our heart voice and say, if we know our why, then we can really better serve people and become a coach and not just a trainer, and do it as unique to lift that person up and make them better about their lives. And so it's like molding a block of clay into an elephant. I mean, if you've ever been in an art class and you've never really made a block of clay into an elephant, you know, you've got your chisel and you all your other instruments, and you've got the block of clay and it's over a piece of paper, you got your water, and you know, you've got all this, you know, you've never molded a block of clay into an elephant. What do you think you might need, Chantel? What do you think you might need to make that block of clay into an elephant? A picture.
Exactly. You need to know what that elephant looks like.
Yes, because if you don't, you're going to chip away at that block of clay over and over again, and it's not going to be, in the end, it's not going to be what you expected. And isn't that how some of us go through our lives? We're chipping away without goals that are growth mindset goals, because we don't know our why, we don't know our vision, we don't have a personal and professional mission statement that represents our vision, and we chip away, and then here it is later on in life, we're looking back and we go, this didn't turn out the way I expected. And so when you know there's a hierarchy, you've got your vision is on top, that's your why. And your personal and professional mission statement basically is a representation. Your mission statement is a written articulation of how you see yourself in the best given potential, written in the present tense. Written in the present tense. So in other words, it's written as if it were today. You write this mission statement like, and it's the I am statements of life. Like, I am a great husband that learns something new about my wife every single day. I am a great father that teaches my son a new life skill every single day. I am a life changer that impacts and empowers a new soul every single day. And when you know this, and this is how you start your day every single day, and knowing your vision, then all of the goals, which are underneath your vision, because there's a hierarchy, vision's on top, goals are right below it, and right below goals are tasks and steps. When you know your why, all of the goals that you make in your life are growth mindset goals, because they support the vision. And then you're working in your desk. It's like, say you were hiking right now, Chantel. Say you were hiking right now, and you were without any cell phone coverage. So your cell phone is useless. You had no map. You had no GPS. You had no compass. What are you? Lost. And when you're lost in the woods, you feel scared, because and what you try and do is you try and get back on track. Well, your vision, and represented by your vision, your why, is a mission statement, and your mission statement is your compass. So if you start each day knowing that mission statement, knowing your why and that vision, like the difference would be like a surgeon that performs surgeries, that's a what, but a surgeon that saves lives, that's a why. He knows why he's on this planet, or she knows why she's on this planet. So I know I'm a life changer. I know that I'm not just in it to make someone fit. I'm in to transform them, not to reform them, to transform them, to make them better than they were before, which is being great. So if you're lost in the woods, you're going to try and get back on track. Well, here it was. I was in China recently, and I was thinking, why do I feel so nervous? It's the end of the day. I'm exhausted. I haven't slept in 36 hours. I came off the plane after not really getting some sleep on that long flight, and I had to speak right away. And I said, why am I not feeling right? Because I wasn't living in my purpose. I wasn't living in my why. And I could, why? Because I didn't speak to my wife yet. And I didn't learn something new about my wife that day. That my first line of my mission statement. So I called her up. I said, hey, honey, was there anything odd or unusual or special that happened today? As a matter of fact, honey, yes. And she starts going on. And here we are. We're spending this moment together. And now I felt like I was back on the path, back on the trail, because my why, my mission statement, which represented my vision, now I was back on track, searching for living in my purpose.
Yeah, go on.
I always say, once you know this and you know your why, then the simple thing to do, and I'm going to tell all your listeners this, once you've done and you contemplated this and you're certain that you got an idea of what this means to you, then I encourage you and all your listeners to do this homework. Here it is. Tonight, I want you to start on a list, if not finish a list, of 150 goals that you want to accomplish in your life. Now, right now, some of your listeners are going, did he say 150? He's out of his mind. 150? Now, let's look at perspective right here, because we all look through a different lens when it comes to the same kind of tasks. 150. Okay. How many of your listeners that are listening right now, how many of them want to live 30 years of productive life? Well, I'm sure that all of them right now are saying, yeah, I want to live 30 years of productive life. We'll do the math. 150 divided by 30, that's five goals a year. Everyone that's listening right now can handle 5 goals a year, because when you take that 150, what you do is you take that vertical list, a brainstorming list, and all those goals support your vision. They support your why because they're growth mindset goals, because you know your why, you know your who, and you take that list and then you take that vertical list and you make it horizontal. You take that list of 150 goals and you put it onto a 30-year calendar, because not all of your goals are long-term. Some are mid-term, some are short-term. It's like my wife. My wife had this thing where she said, hey, you need to fix the garage door. It's making this weird creaking sound. Well, I can let it be a source of stress where I come back, from a trip and she's nagging me about it, or I can let it be one of those short-term goals. And here it is. I get back after coming back from China and she sees me out in the garage working on the garage door. And she's like, this is amazing. She feels good. She feels connected to me because I'm taking her seriously. It was on her list, but I put it on my list. And how did I start my day? I started my day with a win. And we all need those wins, those self-efficacy, self-esteem building points in our life. But yet, overall, it was still on my 30-year calendar. So that vertical list becomes a horizontal list. And then as you know these things that are on your 30-year calendar, you pinpoint them and you do backwards planning to make them come to life. And when you're doing this, you grow personally, professionally, with a feeling of significance and value.
Ken, I absolutely love what we've just been talking about. And I love that you've just given us some homework to do. That is an awesome action. So 150 goals for all of the FBP family out there. And you've actually given me the perfect segue to my next segment, because once we have set those goals, you gave a great example of, a goal that we can do right away. But what if we set ourselves a big goal, like something that's really going to take some time and investment? Do you have any tips for us around how we can actually tackle that and make sure that we accomplish that big goal? You've just written a book. That's huge. A lot of people set out to do something like that, but never quite make it. What can we do to really face our big goals head on and make sure that we accomplish them?
Right. And you're reminding me of that old Chinese proverb that a dream that is not written down is simply a wish, but a dream that is written down is actually a goal. Mm-hmm. And so I'm reminded really about that whole backwards planning process. And having been in the military for over 30 years, we're all about plans and operations and fulfilling those plans. And so when you're putting these plans together, you need to understand that this is just something that should light the fire from within and excite you so much that this is what you look forward to every single time you wake up. You should wake up like a child on Christmas Day morning. You ever see a child on Christmas Day morning hit the snooze button? No, it won't happen. Because when you hit the snooze button, what you're saying is putting off prosperity, putting off prosperity, putting off prosperity. But a kid on Christmas morning, he's waking up before everyone in the family and going, Daddy, Daddy, Mommy, Mommy, Santa was here. Well, granted, isn't that how we should start our day? And so when you're tackling these things, one, you need to let it be a source of incredible fire from within, and do that backwards planning and work toward it. Now, I had someone, of course, you have the devil's advocate that say that, well, Ken, what if you come up to that point where you had that goal list and you had your 30-year goal list, and on that 10-year mark, you come up to it and you just weren't ready. And I looked at that person who told me that in one of these conferences, and I said, Fred, when you made that goal 10 years ago, it was a guess. When you get up to that point and you're just not ready, move the date and work toward it again. The bottom line is that goal within your vision? Does it support your vision? And Fred goes, oh, yeah, of course it is. Well, then fine, work toward that vision. So now to really kind of lower and go from the 40,000 foot view and kind of get toward that landing strip to help you with your questionnaire. And if there's some strategies to help you with your community, I would say there in that backwards planning, there are 3 top tips to strengthen that mindset. Number 1, have humility. Number 2, operate outwardly, not just inwardly. And number 3, activate action and to live intentionally.
Sergeant Ken, do you want to break those down for us really quickly?
Yes. So let's do this where we can talk about those 3 things and how it relates to social media, such as Facebook, right? Okay. So have humility. Some of my most popular photos and videos include bloopers. People want to see your transparency. Bottom line is, if all you're doing is taking photos of yourself inside that, facing that mirror and say, look at me, why don't you also show them about what it took to get you there and all the things that kind of go wrong? They love that transparency by showing them how your professionalism comes with a daily dose of imperfection. It makes you approachable and profound. We flourish through our flaws by turning our frustration into fascination. Number 2, operate outwardly, not just inwardly. Okay, so simply relying on posts are really not enough to build rapport. When you try blogging or sharing terrific resources that will add value to the lives of your followers, well, what you're doing is you're giving selflessly to your team, and you will discover an immediate increase of loyalty and respect by operating in that manner. Number 3, when you activate action, you're creating a clear understanding of what you want your team to do after consuming your content. How will that message move them into action? How will your vision change their lives forever?
Thank you so much for breaking each of those down, Sergeant Ken. And I've got to say to you, I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and just sitting here, I feel energized. I want to go and get my 2020 ready. I feel motivated. I feel ready to tackle it. But I think we need to also be aware that, everyone has great times during the year, but we often have downtimes. Well, it's
that's
not
quite true.
Always great, is it? So I'd like to make sure that we look at both perspectives. So we've talked about the motivation, we've talked about setting our year up for success, about setting goals, but
Right.
Can you give us any advice around what we can do when the going gets tough, and what we can do in those times where we lose motivation around our business, our career, or just in life generally?
That is really true, Chantel. We often have these setbacks, and then we wonder, how do we turn these setbacks into comebacks? How do we turn that vulnerability into victory? Because every test can be a testimony only if we understand how to turn that adversity into advantage. And it's not easy. And people have been asking me, asking my wife and I about the book, Everything I Would Have Said, and really what does it mean? And the whole story, was about this friendship that we had with a man by the name of Trevor. And here it was 4 years ago. I was getting this private message on Facebook saying, this lady, I didn't know who she was, and she says, "Hey Ken, did Trevor reach out to you before he left?" And I said, "Wow, that's I get odd messages sometimes from time to time." And I felt in my heart I was supposed to respond to this. And I said, "Ma'am, here's my cell phone. Go ahead and call me. I'd love to follow up with this." And so she calls me right away, and she reminded me and connected the dots that this was Trevor's mom. And Trevor, let me tell you, Trevor was the kind of guy, he was the general manager of a Crunch Fitness, formerly called Gorilla Sports in San Francisco, where we used to live. And he was the kind of guy, when he walked in the room, just everyone really felt good. Okay. And this was the pre-kid days before we had our child. And so my wife was the sales manager and also personal trainer. I was the boot camp guy. And, we would all kind of, do our job and then go have Nick's tacos and some beers at night. And just, it was just life. And Trevor really made everyone feel good. So, but what we didn't know is he was kind of battling depression behind the scenes, because some of the setbacks that he was having in his life, he didn't know how to deal with that stress. You see, we all face adversity all the time in our life. And there's 2 things that can happen when you face adversity of any kind: fall apart or bounce back. That's life. When falling apart, that's horrible. But when you bounce back, I ask you this: when you bounce back, do you bounce back to where you were before? Absolutely not, because what you go through, you grow through, and that's resilience. Now, here's the reason why this was happening to him. He was dealing with life not in a level of stress, but on suffering. Stress and pain are the same thing. They're normal. They're life. We're affected by our environment. But suffering is where you feel hopeless and helpless to manage the stress in your life. And when you feel hopeless and helpless, you try and find escape. And so he was dealing with this depression, and his mom said, look, I love you, honey, but you really need to deal with this. And he goes, well, I don't trust counselors, but I trust Ken and Stephanie. They're life coaches, and I'm going to reach out to them. And she goes, great. But that night, he changed his mind, and he took his life. And here we were wrecked. And that began our mission 4 years ago, where everything I would have said is a dedication to Trevor, because we all have setbacks, and we all have a life song. And that life song, while we may go through life and think that life song is insignificant and not valuable, but that's not true. That life song is something valuable to somebody else. And if you silence yourself, someone may have needed that life song. They may have needed to hear that life song to change them forever. And so this book, everything I would have said, is really, it's yes, it's stories, and yes, it's strategies. It's self-help and nonfiction, but it's us being able to say, through the strategies of many different people in our lives that we've met over the years, that you're significant, you're valuable, and you may not think you are, but you are. And when you realize that significance and that value in yourself, you're able to do more for others.
Sergeant Ken, thank you so much for sharing that story, and you have really encouraged me to go and read the book, because I'm so interested to hear some more about what you would have said and in that situation and in many. And I think what I just took out of that as well is how important it is that we circle back to where we first started our conversation today, which is really knowing why we do what we do, and really thinking about, I love the planning behind setting those goals and looking to the future and thinking about the vision and our mission. And so thank you for sharing such a personal story with us today. And as I said at the beginning, I think it's so important that we acknowledge that, yes, it's great to be energized and set ourselves our goals and really set our year up for success. But we also need to acknowledge that every single person out there goes through ups and downs, and that there are certainly ways that we can address that. Sergeant Ken, once again, thank you so much for sharing that story. And we are now coming to our favorite part of the show, which is our Fit Bizpiration. And for today, can you please leave us with your top 3 tips for staying motivated and making 2020 our best year yet? We're about to hear this week's Fit Bizpiration, but first, here's a message from our friends at Gym Sales. Gym Sales allows you to plan, implement, and monitor a proactive sales strategy that's automated and uniform. You can give your sales team the tools they need to capture, nurture, and convert new members, which means it's easier than ever before to grow your member base. Make sure you head over to gymsales.net to find out more information. Now back to the show, where Sergeant Ken is going to share 3 tips on staying motivated and making 2020 your best year yet.
Oh, fantastic. If I were to narrow it down to the top tips to be triumphant in 2020, I would say be forgiving, be grateful, and be intentional. And I'll go ahead and elaborate on those. Be forgiving. Forgiveness does not change the past. Forgiveness changes the future. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you agree with what happened to you. Forgiveness allows your heart to focus on hope instead of hate. You simply cannot move forward if you are holding on to the past. Be grateful. Having an attitude of gratitude greatly amplifies your happiness and health. That's a fact. Be intentional, not just having good intentions. Can you apply action behind your aim? Can you turn your words of good intentions to words of intentional living to achieve a life that matters? I mean, like a good example of words of good intentions. Someday I will try to. Or words of intentional living. Today I will. A life that matters example would be every day I do. I mean, if you want to live a life that matters, don't start when you get good. Start now so you become good. And, it reminds me of this one thing that my wife said one day, and it's also referenced in the book. We don't need to live the way the world is now. We need to live the way we want the world to be.
It's such a beautiful quote, and I think a great quote to finish on today. We want to say a huge thank you on behalf of all of us for joining us, for really setting our year up for success. Wishing you and Stephanie all the very best for your year as well. And just a quick reminder, we're of course going to put the link for your book in today's show notes so everyone can go and check that out. So Sergeant Ken, thank you so much once again for joining us today.
The honor is mine, and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Here's a message from our podcast partner, One Fit Stop. We'd like to thank our sponsor, One Fit Stop, for their support, and we highly recommend all fitness professionals go to onefitstop.com to find out how their software will enable you to take control of day-to-day management in your fitness business. One Fit Stop's scheduling, client management, programming, and payment collection tools will set your business up for success.
PreCall Quickfire 5.
This week's PreCall Quickfire 5 guest is great friend of the show, Emma Barry. Emma Barry, a super warm welcome and Happy New Year to you.
And back at you on the Gold Coast. Very excited to be here again.
We are so excited to have you here and to kickstart 2020. So let's kick things off with your PreCall Quickfire 5. Tell us, why do you do what you do?
Well, my great love is people and projects hitting their potential, and that lines up with my I exist to inspire everybody to be explosively bold. So I love getting up in the morning, running around and lighting fires under people and projects.
Phenomenal. And what's one ritual that helps you become better at what you do?
Partner. So the moment I need help, I think, who can help me with that? And I partner with them.
Oh, yeah. That was a big part of getting your book written, right? Was having an accountability partner?
My good Lord, let's talk about that book, and thank you for the praise quote. Yes, couldn't have done any of that without a whole host of partners that will be published in the acknowledgements, including yourself.
So important to work with people that support us. And tell us, are there any apps or systems that you use to stay in control of your workload?
I was using Tasks, and then I shifted to Asana just so that I could share my to-do list with my VA, because I'm terrible at handing work over, so this is forcing the issue.
Yeah, that's a great one. And Asana is a super popular answer. And you're allowed to pitch your own book in this one. What's one book, podcast, or blog that you'd recommend and why?
Well, let's do that then. Let's pitch Building a Badass Boutique, which will be up on Amazon by the end of this month, January, and launching at the Sweat event in London, which is put on by the UK Active. So it's your 10-touch journey to building or designing a fitness studio that rocks. And it takes you through all the touch points, and whether you're in the industry, in a big box, in a studio, wanting to get into fitness, it covers all those audiences. Thank you for asking.
Well, I can absolutely speak firsthand on this one because you very kindly gave me an advance copy to read, which I read over Christmas and New Year. And let me tell you all this. If you want a complete guide, I'm talking like step by step, break down every single part of the process of building a badass fitness boutique, then this is an absolute must-read book. So I want to encourage you all to get your hands on Emma's new book. And as she mentioned, it's going to be coming out at the end of the month. So by the time we go live with this episode, we will make sure that there is a link in the show notes so you guys can jump over and grab your very own copy. And last but not least, we're going to be talking today all about setting our New Year's resolutions for group fitness. And I'm excited to tell you that next week we have not one, but two special guests coming on to share their New Year's group fitness resolutions. Emma Barry and the creative director at Fire Fitness, Tracy Minnick. Those interviews are coming up next week in episode 273. We are winding back the clock to 2017 for this week's Rewind segment. The episode was called How to Embrace Change in Your Career and Life, and my special guest was Terry Hawkins. During the interview, I talked to Terry about why you should work with people that complement your skill set. We discussed the importance of adapting to change, and Terry shared advice for women pursuing their career goals. If you missed that episode, then go to today's show notes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, scroll down and click the link in the timeline for episode 123. On Thursday, March the 19th, 2020, you'll have the opportunity to join friends and colleagues at the annual FBP Family Meetup at URSA 2020. Starting from the lobby of the convention centre at 6:30 a.m, we walk and talk for 60 minutes, sharing experience, ideas and stories. Everyone from the FBP family is invited, and we would love for you to join us on the day. We would also love to know who's coming along, so please jump over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, go to the top of the page and click on the tab called Meetup, then register your details for the URSA walk. If you need any more information, please email me directly at chantal@fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you all so much for joining me for this week's show. A reminder that all the resources and the links for today's episode can be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you to our foundation partner, Active Management. Active Management are a fitness business coaching company that help clients all over the world. And this month, I have a business tip for you all. Join the Active Management Facebook community. It's an amazing group, and you'll meet like-minded fitness owners and managers from all over the world. All you need to do is go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community. It's a highly engaging community where JT from Active Management shares loads of resources. Things like photos from inside gyms, reasons to exercise, a monthly book club, challenges, and even ideas under $50. It's free and it is an awesome community. Once again, just go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community. Thank you all once again. Enjoy your week ahead. Go ahead and set those goals, and remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into lives of others.